I'd like to welcome back political commentator Joe Visconti and talk show host Lee Elci. Joe and Lee, welcome back to Election Edge. Happy to have you with me today.
Great to be here.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Lee, let me start with you, okay? We've seen some positive numbers. Donald Trump is having a good week. There was some information out that said voters are reflecting on the success of Trump's presidency. 51% saying he was a successful president, even though they didn't necessarily like him. Whereas Joe Biden is viewed as a failure. 37% believe he had a successful presidency. And Lee, these numbers are translating into very favorable news on the issues. What are your listeners telling you out there relative to Trump, Harris, Biden? Give me your analysis based upon what your listeners are telling you.
Listeners are very, very confident right now. I think that they are right along, even more so, maybe even more Trump support than that poll would indicate. I think most of the people who pay any attention to their own lives realize that they were better off during a 4-year span under Donald Trump than they are under this 4-year span of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I mean, it's simple, it's common sense, it's economic, it's your pocketbook, it's the way you feel. I mean, Biden has very little to hang his hat on, if anything. The only thing maybe is an infrastructure package, but that doesn't really translate well to the average everyday person who's out there working 9 to 5 trying to make a living and put food on the table and put money in the bank. So yeah, it's always going to boil down in the end to the economy. That is going to be the number one issue for voters, and I certainly think that they feel like the economy under Trump was better, and the economy moving forward will be light years better than Kamala Harris. When you say 37% of the people think Biden has done a better job, I want to talk to those 37 people, because there is something seriously wrong with those 37.
That's a great point. Joe, in that Gallup survey that said Republicans are up in 9 out of 10 key issues, that poll favored Republican Democrats 48-45. And on the economy that Lee was just talking about, the numbers 46% to 41% in favor of Republicans. And I love the way the next question was worded. It said 50 to 44% make America prosper again. So, Joe, I mean, that's a Donald Trump setup layup for you there. What say you?
I say, I like that poll. A little technical difficulty over here, though. I can't hear Lee for some reason. Hopefully it's not on my end. But the polls are really moving towards Donald Trump now. And we all thought they would come September, come cold weather. Right now up in the Northeast, where Lee and I are, it's cloudy, it's gloomy, rainy, it's cold. And so this begins the time where everyone realizes that's it. Heating oil's got to go up. I keep saying it. Beating a dead horse, it's going to be the economy driving these polls. As the temperature goes down, polls to Trump are going up.
Well, guys, the favorability ratings of Vice President Harris sort of peaked at coming out of the Democratic National Convention. She was at 47% on her job approval performance. Now, into September, it's down to 44. Lee, I've got to believe part of that is because the non-answers to specific questions, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Well, I was brought up in a middle-class neighborhood in Oakland. I mean, that is wearing thin on people. Her non-answers to questions about immigration, the border, crime, and some of these comments about foreign affairs. Lee, the public may not care as much about public affairs, and they're going to vote on pocketbook issues. But when they see cities overridden by illegal immigrants, they see egg prices, $5 a carton, milk expensive, meat, forget it, chicken and pork. I mean, come on. I mean, I had one of my viewers, followers, says, why don't you get a hold of Flynn, tell him to call Trump and tell Trump to go to a grocery store. Well, I'll be damned. Trump did go to a grocery store. And what happened? He ended up giving a $100 bill to some lady. And then what do these wacko Democrats do? They want to boycott the grocery store that Trump went to. Lee, make some sense out of it, because Trump is talking about pocketbook issues, multiple stops every day.
You know, I love the way it's phrased, job performance, her job numbers, like what percentage like the job that she has done as vice president. Please tell me, what has she done as vice president? Give me one thing. What job did she do? Did nothing at the border. She's done nothing. She's probably been the least effective vice president, certainly in my lifetime. I can't think of anybody who's done less. And you are so correct. The word salad answer she gives you the basic questions. I've always said this. Anybody who cannot stand or sit in front of a microphone and have a conversation about what they believe and what they think should happen, that person has no right being in political office. Period. Stop. End of discussion. That is not hard. If you can't sit across from somebody, even somebody from Fox News, even somebody from a rival politically conservative network, and answer what they say, then there is something seriously flawed about your candidacy. So yeah, I think people are beginning to see through it, and I really think that the more she's exposed, Mark, the worse she's going to look. Period.
Yeah, Lee, I think you're right about that. And Joe, same question to you. I mean, her approval rating as vice president is higher than I ever expected because I'm in Lee's camp. She was put in charge of the border, and that is an absolute disaster. Biden, for some inexplicable reason, now thinks she was president for the last 3.5 years, going around saying, well, I assigned everything to her. I'm saying, what do you mean? I mean, before she was like a footnote. They actually had thought about getting rid of her. She was so ineffective. 10% of her staff quit. And then now it's like he's making these statements. Well, I basically put her in charge of domestic policy and foreign policy. And I'm like, well, what'd you do, Joe? I mean, other than just grow old and couldn't answer questions. And yeah, you got through a United Nations speech yesterday. But my goodness, Joe, I mean, this is, I keep questioning myself. From my perspective, I think from your guys, the only this election is close is because of Trump derangement syndrome and the number of Democrats that just loathe the man. But Joe, this race really shouldn't be close, and maybe America's sensing up and it may be moving in the right direction finally.
Well, I don't like the way you guys are beating up on Kamala Harris. She would not have forgotten who was next to speak in the White House lawn. The Prime Minister of India was standing there, and Joe yells out, "Who's next? Who's next?" I mean, who's running the country? So it's everybody sees it. I've been saying this too. Everyone sees what's going on, and those that are diehard Democrats are just going to pull that lever no matter what. You can't change their mind. There is no mind to change. But people, they have that old saying, "As a king, so is the land." And I mentioned this earlier today. Trump could step in a pile of dung and come out with $1 million stuck to his feet. Joe Biden, everything he touches just turns to the dung. And so it's just, as the king, so is the land. And we've got a guy who's got no brains. He never had any experience. And our country has followed the king, metaphorically.
It is so hilarious to me.
Kamala will tell you just what we're going to get with her. Somebody who's a word salad. You're going to have a word salad economy. How would you read forms of the Wall Street Journal with her?
God.
It is ridiculous, and I think the polls are showing it.
Well, to add a little levity to an edge, I'm sure both of you saw the president's appearance on The View. Biden still doesn't realize, or maybe he does, and he just doesn't want to say that he was forced out of the race. I mean, he goes on there and says, well, if I'd have stayed in, I could have beat Trump. Trump's a loser. And like, well, Joe, why'd you leave? And he couldn't answer the question. And I don't know. It's just, Waltz and Harris use that term weird a lot. I think we got a weird president. I mean, to go on a show like that, friendly territory to say the least, and he can't even comprehend why he's not in the race himself. I don't know, guys. 4 more months of this guy as the president. I don't know. I mean, you got Putin changing his nuclear missile launch policies on where he'll strike, the terms and conditions. And you got our fearless leader it doesn't give you any confidence when he steps up to that podium. Anyhow, enough on Biden. Lee, what about the fact the media is doing everything they possibly can do to champion Harris and create problems for Trump? From 95% positive coverage on her to 95% negative coverage on Trump. Google ads, she's the shining star. Trump, they bury him somewhere on page 9. Lee, it's not getting any better, and yet Trump is still looks like he can win this race.
Imagine if it was fair. Imagine if the media actually portrayed both sides as fair, where the polls would actually be. And you're spot on. I think last time I was on the show with you, I made a point to say that this was right after they decided to go with Kamala Harris and run that gauntlet with her, that the media was going to create this movie star-esque kind of a picture of her, as if somehow she is Margaret Thatcher and Mother Teresa all rolled up into one. And I made that prediction literally before that whole process started, because that's really the only way they could have enhanced her persona to the American people. I mean, again, go back. This is a woman who's really not accomplished anything as vice president. When she did run for president the first go around, she was horrifyingly bad, got 0 delegates, raised no money, and then poof, all of a sudden, they're in a box. The Democrats are in this box. They don't know how to navigate out of it. They can't go around Kamala Harris because you can't skip over a black woman who's the vice president and fly in, parachute in Gavin Newsom to run, or some other person that they may not choose that's not of color. Their only other option was Michelle Obama, and clearly she didn't want to do it. So you're stuck. So what do? Okay, well, you have to team up with the media and ask the media to do the heavy lifting for you. Make her look good at all costs, no matter what. And you know what? They've done it. Or at least they've done their best to do it. And as I said earlier, the more you see of her, I think the less people like her, which is why she doesn't do these, she doesn't do the pre-planned, without getting the questions, interviews. She doesn't do press conferences because she's not prepared for it. And then they know she'll look bad.
Yeah. Joe, same comment?
Yeah, they're doing a great job, I have to say that, on the left, of right in your face, showing you that what you already know. And again, I think this goes really down. A friend of mine was driving around our town, which is very communistic here in Connecticut, and he had his Trump flag on the car. And in our area, they hated him. We went to a rural town, and people were coming up to his car. So really, it keeps getting down to that: hate Trump, and not necessarily love her, but hating Trump is the driver of this whole election. And so even though we want to address her incompetencies, her inability to articulate, and if she can't formulate words, even on a teleprompter, as she was on Oprah the other day, what are we talking about here? Who's running the country? And that is the dangerous thing I think people are worried about. Their elected officials and their voting doesn't matter because something else or some other people we don't know who are running the United States and the world. And it's so evident today. It's not conspiracy. So that's another deep-seated fear. People are wondering. They knew Trump ran the economy. They knew he was running the country, but they don't see Biden or her. And they're wondering, the rumors it's Obama behind the scenes. Well, what the heck kind of a democracy? It's all blowing up. The charade and the facade they put up is blowing up. And I just think as we get closer and closer, she'll step on a few of her own landmines because of an attempt to try to make it look like she's engaged. And so look for
Joe, I just made me think of something. I'm sorry to cut in, but it's, how can the American confidence be higher than 0? I mean, you saw Biden. He's not capable. He's gone. Gonzo, right? And she is not mentally acute, and she's not smart enough to have that position. America should be scared to death right now that there is a possibility that Kamala Harris is in the White House. Even if, we're all hoping it's a small possibility, we should be scared to death to think about that. The confidence in the American people should be 0 right now.
Well, 40 days out, and, we still have, 5 of the 7 swing states are within 1 or 2 points. So By definition, this race is extreme right. And, we looked at polls yesterday. CNN has Harris +1. Quinnipiac had Trump +1. New York Times Siena had it tied. Fox News had her +2. Rasmussen had Trump +2. Insider Advantage, Trump +1. So, it's a 1 to 2 point race. Those fears are justified. And Lee, 45% of Americans on both sides of the aisle said they were fearful if the other side won. So that's where American politics is now. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of the influence George Soros and his son are having on this election. And it's not a small matter, folks. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
And we're back with Lee Elci and Joe Visconti. Hey, Joe, I'll start this one with you. The government just gave George Soros permission to buy 200 radio stations in the United States. And Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz, the communist from Minnesota, was seen meeting with Soros' son in a posh Manhattan apartment overlooking the city. This one election selling 200 radio stations. Now, will it have an effect? Who knows? But it's crystal clear to me, Walz and the Democrats, Joe, they have moved so far left. They are openly embracing George Soros, the globalist, and that whacked out global agenda that they have. This is having Soros with 200 radio stations is not necessarily a good thing, in our country.
You can see, well, this is a great question when I'm done for Lee, because he's the radio man here, but you can see what their agenda is. Get the district attorneys by the Soros group, get the voting, they get out the vote, things that he did in 2020. And now the radio stations, basically he feels that NPR is going to go down the tubes when Trump gets back in. So they're making a move right now to continue to move into a territory that's always been, Republican talk radio, whether these are those kind of stations or not, but there'll be influence. And so they're doing a complete, I hate to say, a communist takeover of our whole country. It's happening in real time. We're watching it. Everybody sees the pieces. And it's like, no, we're, as you ever put together a puzzle, you got 1,000 pieces, you get pretty close. You see the picture on the box. You can't make out what you're doing. There comes a moment when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I see it. Yeah, this looks like the picture. And this is what's happening right now. America's looking at a puzzle, and enough pieces have been put together in the last, I would say, 8 to 10 years that if you have a mind that's objective and care and you love everybody, you're American, you can't help but see the puzzle that's being put together by all types of CIA, FBI, capturing of our agencies, as RFK Jr. talks about. So it's all becoming very, very clear. The radio stations are just one more piece of it.
Lee, you're in radio every day. I mean, again, what are you hearing relative to this Soros acquisition? 200 nations, and
Oh,
then Walt's
yeah.
Walt's meeting with Soros' son.
I don't think it'll have an effect necessarily on this election, but I certainly think it's something to look for, down the line for sure. It's already affected people that I know who work for Odyssey groups who have been purchased or in the sort of in the actions of being purchased by Soros or groups similar to him. I think it's dangerous to have one person own that many radio stations. And certainly somebody of his ilk who we know who is going to either bend the conversation severely to the left. And I know this is America, so it's free market, and I believe in free market. But he'll bang the drum constantly and not. Well, I guess what is even more concerning is that he may just eliminate the conservative talk radio stations and put something else on, because you're not going to replace it necessarily with left-leaning talk, because that's a failure. It's always been a failure. It's never been successful. The only time anybody who's any success on radio, or even television for that matter, who happens to be left and any kind of a debate type of or a conversational type of format, is when you either team a left person up with someone on the right, or it's a right-leaning station, because that's the only way you get some semblance of actual accuracy and truth. So I'm a little concerned, because you got to start gobbling up radio stations, and next thing you know, you turn around and 200 becomes 500, becomes 700, and now you're searching for a place to actually find hosts that you may like and respect and want to listen to, and all of a sudden they're few and far between, and they're gone. And it's dangerous. I think it's a dangerous situation. And clearly, a meet with the son of Soros is a big deal. I mean, obviously they're talking about this kind of stuff and talking about the media angle that they can help with.
Well,
yeah.
Interesting. Go ahead, Joe.
It's similar to the payola of the 40s and 50s for record spinning, when the producers and the record companies, in this case, it's politics, it's propaganda. It's not a radio or a hit song by Frank Sinatra or something, but that's exactly what happens. And the conversation for the left, and Lee knows this, truth is much easier to recognize in the auditory brain rather than visual, where you can be deceived much easier. But they know what they're doing. And this is a systematic takeover of all medium. And then don't forget, what X did and what Elon did really hurt them bad. So they've had to make moves against what Elon Musk has done, and they're laying out they're war gaming the media completely, because I think we won't recognize all media in 4 years, whether Trump got in or whether they got in. Either way, we're at that tipping point where it's all going to go one way or the other.
Well, even if they try to take down these stations, you have organizations like Patriot TV, like Newsmax, like Fox News, like Blaze. I could go on and on. There's a lot on the right that are out there, in the digital world. So, I mean, that's going to be damn near impossible to shut down unless they go literally after the companies. But you're right, Lee. They've tried this before. Nobody listens to left-wing talk radio because their ideas are stupid. They don't make any sense. And, those people get their news from MSNBC and TikTok, but it's not normal. So speaking of MSNBC, Comrade Kamala, after that disastrous interview with Oprah, has now decided to be interviewed by Miss Stephanie Ruhle, who hosts a late night show on MSNBC. I guess it's going to air this evening. Stephanie Ruhle has been one advocating for Harris not to talk to the media because, in her view, there's no need for her to. Lee, to have Harris coming on MSNBC, I mean, when coming after Oprah and coming after Dana Bash at CNN and a handful of locals, I mean, Lee, this isn't going to cut it for the critics, and still no press conference.
It would be like Joe interviewing Trump on Patriot TV. That's what it'd be like. Same exact thing.
It would.
It would be nothing but softballs. I know that, it's, what do you expect? This is what they do, man. Let's we'll unleash her on this late night audience. We'll give her these nothing questions, try to make her look good, carry her to the finish line. You could probably see more and more of this stuff probably happening. You're going to probably see her in more of these situations where they're propping her up. Look, we were talking about this earlier. This is just something that the media has been essentially hired by the Democrat Party to help promote Kamala Harris, and they're doing it. And it goes back to something else I said in the beginning. If you are a legit candidate, you should sit down with anyone. Look what Trump did. Trump went into the Lion's Den, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, the actual group that it was, but he went in to the auditorium, that big arena, when he was asked a bunch of questions by those black journalists, if you remember. He wasn't afraid. He went in there and answered the questions. That's what real leaders do. That's what people of character do. That's what presidents should do. So her going to these fluff pieces, nonsense places, meaningless. When she steps up to the microphone and actually is asked difficult questions, that I might have some respect, but I don't expect that to happen.
Well, I mean, I've said it before on the show, and Joe, I'll take what Lee's comments. She did reasonably well in that debate. I mean, she's been a VP for 3.5 years. She was a senator for a couple years, DA before that. I mean, it's not like she's not in front of a camera. It's just,
right.
It's just mind-boggling to me. She's losing this race. Far be it for us to give recommendations to, a Democratic presidential nominee what to do. But the fact of the matter is, she could be doing more, and she's deliberately not. And again, I think people are seeing through that. We'll see how the interview goes with Rule. I'm sure it's going to be softball after softball. Again, on that Oprah interview, when a normal citizen just asked a straightforward question, please explain to me why we're better off now than we were 4 years ago, we got the same patented answer. Well, I grew up as a middle-class kid. I don't know. It drives you sort of crazy. All right. So Trump, God love him. He's out there everywhere. He had a message today, guys, related to illegal immigrants. And in some cases, his message to legal Haitian immigrants. Get ready to leave. And I think that warning from Trump, he talks about mass deportation. We may not have mass deportation, but I get the feeling if Trump wins, criminals, certain others, there will be deportations. The left will go crazy, Joe, and we're going to have a hot button issue on our hands even if Trump wins.
Yeah, well, the Eli Gonzalez back in the Clinton day? Remember that? They grabbed him out of Miami, that kid?
Sure.
That's what the left would like to see, and they would just put that in front of the cameras. It's not going to happen. I think you'll see the E-Verify system really ramp up. I think Trump, if he doesn't fire the 88,000 new hire IRS agents, he's going to turn them on small businesses to make sure, no matter how many employees you have, that you're using E-Verify and that people are working, shut down the ability to rent, shut down the ability to get a mortgage, and just go after the states, kind of like Lincoln did, not slavery in this case, but it would be illegal immigration and the harboring. I mentioned this a long time ago, 2008, when I ran for Congress. I brought to the general public the fact that the RICO Act could be used against states, banks, at the time, Catholic Church, all these groups of people it's racketeering to harbor illegal aliens, and that's never been challenged. So I think there's so many, weapons that he has in his arsenal on this issue that they'll roll them out, and I don't think you're going to see the removing children from schools and families that are here or already entrenched. But I think he's going to get a lot of them out.
Yeah, I believe so too. I'll tell you one thing. If he followed through on that promise he's made on the campaign and applied it to California, California would lose 25% or more of its workers, and this economy would no telling what would happen. All right, look, we're going to take our mid-course break, but when we come back, we're going to get into some of the stuff. Harris supporting transgender surgery for inmates. Yeah, folks, we've got the tape about it. And some of these polling, we've uncovered massive undersampling of Republicans. You cannot be shocked by that as they try to influence, not paint public opinion. All right, back in 90 seconds.
Former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleading guilty today for lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to thepatriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
And we're back. Hey, folks, I got my Donor Deck and my collectible coin right here. This is great stuff. If Trump wins, this stuff is going to become collector's items. The proceeds, net profits go to charity. Whether you want to buy 1, 10, or 100 of these babies, these are going to be valuable items. They got pictures of Trump, his staff, Melania, the good guys, the bad guys too. So pick up your Donor Deck. Just scroll down to Election Edge, click on it. It'll take you right there, and you will enjoy these puppies. Okay, Lee, we've done some uncovering on some of these polls, and ABC did that poll over the weekend that I think showed Harris +5. We started diving into the metrics behind that poll, and the first thing that stood out to us was in the 2020 election, 36% of all voters were Republican. This poll had Republicans at 29%. Lee, this is a perfect example of polls trying to influence voters to vote with the winning side, even though the reality is, we've quoted 4 or 5 polls since then that's showing a 1 or a 2-point race either way. And Lee, the reality is this race is a 1 or 2-point race. Either Trump's up 2, she may be up 2. It's that tight. It is not a 4 or 5-point race as far as Election Edge can see it.
Listen, I think we look back at 2016 when we were all duped by the polls. Everyone was calling Clinton a guarantee, and Trump ended up, winning that election delegate-wise fairly easily. And I can see the same type of things happening now, trying to manufacture some kind of a feel-good story to get momentum. I'm always questioning as to whether or not that really works. I'm not really sure that's effective long-term, but I've been saying this for a while. Maybe you guys agree, maybe you disagree. You want to know what the real true poll probably is? Go down the street in any town in America, you choose it, and ask the first 100 women that you run into walking down the street who they're going to vote for. Ask them if they're going to vote, and ask them who they're going to vote for. And I think that goes a long, long way to tell you who is going to be the next president. And surprisingly, I don't think a lot of the women are just going to gravitate towards Kamala Harris because she's a woman. I think that they're looking big picture. So I think if you can get that number, for Trump to, 45 of the women voting for him, I think he wins this thing by a landslide. So I think that's where you got to look. I think the women, I've been saying this for a while, I think the women are going to decide this election.
Well, Lee, if he hits 45% among women, it's going to be a landslide for Trump because some polling has shown the gender gap widen. I've seen some polls showing he's down 15, 16 points among women, but those same polls show him up by men 10, 12 points. So, Joe, what do you think about the deliberate undersampling? Or in some cases, they just can't find Trump voters and they're being left out. And Lee's right, based upon comparing where he is today versus where Biden and Clinton were, he's running far ahead of where he was on this same date 40 days out 4 and 8 years ago.
Internal polling is the most accurate polling, and you can see by where Trump is going, where she's going, what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish. But RFK Jr. is going to help immensely, as well as Tulsi Gabbard, but definitely RFK Jr. with the women vote. It's not being recognized. It's not being polled. It's not really being asked or treated as though it's valuable as much as it is. I've watched women, I've seen RFK twice in the last year in New York City, and the place was swarmed with women, and you could just see them fawning over him, and the whole mystique of the Kennedy. It's huge, and nobody is thinking of that. And it'll come out after the election just how much he helped. But every one of his ads that RFK is running on X and other platforms is just hitting the children, the health issues. I mean, the food you eat, healthy, everything that women want, beautiful skin, healthy, everything to do with family. And so that message Trump could never deliver if he had it, and he just could never. He's not that kind of person. But RFK Jr. can, and he is, and we haven't seen anything. I think they're going to really do one of those relay races at the end, and you're going to see a race at the end. Like, wow, this is blown away. So that's where my faith is, and that's why I spent some time and money to go to New York to see RFK Jr. twice. I had a feeling there's something I needed to see, and I did see it with my own eyes, and even I was absorbed and like, wow. I don't like some of his dances, but he's bringing more than 4 or 5 points, and they're not polling that. That's the question no one's asking.
If you're right about that, Joe, again, if he's pulling that out of Kennedy, again, this election will be a blowout. I mean, we'll see how it ends up playing out. Listen, on a more serious note, and this broke just before our show came on the air today. Several Secret Service heads and members of that organization are departing, and Trump was he came out and has said Iran is trying to assassinate me, and Matt Gaetz said there were a team of five hit squads trying to get him. So far, it's 0 for 2, and you look at these two numbskulls that failed. One person was killed by the first one. How this could have been done without any help, it's shocking to me. Even the Democrats in the Senate who are on the committees looking into this have said the American people will be shocked at what we find, particularly on what happened in Butler. Lee, not to be on a sour note here, but Trump, the United States is protecting the Iranian president, and the Iranian president is trying to have Trump killed. I mean, there's a certain degree of irony within this, and it's not something that's pretty or that's something to laugh about, because so far there have been 2 attempts on his life.
You take a look at the dynamics of the election, right? So you've got somebody like Harris, or before that Biden, and then you've got somebody who is will be so willing to push back against Iran and leadership of the Iranian people. Clearly, I mean, you've got to think that when you have these two types of candidates, and one country, Iran in this case, is going to lose so dramatically if Trump is the president, or any other person would be the president who would stand against that country, you would have to think that that nation is going to have a vested interest in eliminating that candidate. And the Secret Service should have been on top of this, and should be on top of it now. And they should use all of their assets to try to ferret out anybody they may think would want to harm Trump. I mean, that is what their job is. But you've got to think, even other countries who may, stand to lose significantly if Trump is president, China being one, where he would be a much stronger adversary to them. Of course they're going to want him dead. This is a simple calculation. So the fact that we're protecting their president and they're trying to kill him, it's an ugly, state of irony. But I mean, what can I say except I'm disappointed with the way the Secret Service has been, sort of the light has been shining on the Secret Service here in the last couple of months. They've done a poor job. I think hopefully they can rearrange the leadership and get sort of back on track. But in a general sense, man, I think you got to look at these other countries who stand to lose a lot if Trump is president, and you've got to really shine a bright light on them and the people that they may hire out or contract out to try to kill Trump.
Joe, Zelensky gave his speech at the UN earlier today, and Trump wasn't so happy with it. I mean, he basically said Zelensky missed an opportunity where he could have been pushing the peace button. Now, Zelensky mentioned the desire to get Russia to the table for peace negotiations. But again, we're pulling for good over evil. But when you have 80% of your power plants not operational, and you have the United States not allowing natural gas to go into Europe, and you got the Russians adding 180,000 troops to the current Russian army to get it up to 1.5 million active duty, now the second largest in the world behind China. They've suffered horrific losses in this war, as has Ukraine. But I mean, the Russians it doesn't seem other than they call it volunteers. You and I know damn good and well it's not volunteers. But Joe, that's another problem area. And Trump is saying we need a peaceful solution. And if that means giving up some territory, then so be it. You know, Trump's getting criticized, but at the end of the day, he's probably right.
Well, you got two issues here. One of them is personal safety. Look at, they just found RPGs in El Paso. So how much stuff is coming out of Afghanistan with people that ends up in South America through Mexico? We don't know what's here, you know. Everyone wants to ban guns and handguns and AR-15s, but there's military-grade weapons here in this country right now from the cartels or from we don't even know who. So talk about Trump Force One. It doesn't have countermeasures as Air Force One does. So, you know, he's flying everywhere all day long, every day. So God forbid anything happens to him with that. And the Secret Service needs to really, really ramp it up, especially for a candidate like him, who we've never seen before. No one has ever campaigned as hard as Donald Trump, ever. And in 2016, I was part of the team and I watched it. I don't know how this guy, I couldn't stay awake. How does this guy stay awake? How does he keep going? It's unbelievable. As far as Ukraine, I mean, I understand what happened at the beginning, but the reality now is that United States military is shipping friends of mine out. They're being shipped out to go to Israel to stop Israel from, finishing off Hezbollah and Hamas and encouraging sending rockets, you name it, to Ukraine to continue this war that's going to become nuclear. What the hell are we doing? Again, earlier I said it, who's running this country? Who is doing this? It's not Obama. Is it the military? Are there factions in the military and intelligence that have gone rogue? How will we know? Are people being blackmailed at all levels of government? So we've really reached a point where these agencies have been captured and we don't know what's going on. And I think this is why somebody, let's just call it, I don't want to be conspiracy theorist here, but they're out to get this guy, because between Trump and RFK Jr. pushing back on Big Pharma and all the way the establishment and the corporations have worked behind the scenes, nobody knows who's in control, and very dangerous time. Prayers work, keep praying, and pray to God that all the white hats, the good people that are in our intelligence communities and Secret Service and Homeland Security are watching, whatever may be happening with nefarious, or just look the other way, people that are sitting within their right. agencies. That's what I fear. They may not be trying to harm, but just people are lethargic.
Well, Joe, we know who's running the country. It's Jill Biden. She chaired the cabinet meeting the other day. Yeah. No, in all sincerity, whether it's Jill Biden, Barack Obama, the military, BlackRock, Susan Rice, who the hell knows? It sure as heck is not Joe Biden. That's for sure. All right, look, we're going to take our final break, but when we come back, a little lighter subject, the Al Smith dinner. Cardinal Dolan is none too happy that Comrade Kamala is not going to show up. Maybe she watched clips of Hillary Clinton from 2016, and while she's clamoring for a debate, how can you debate someone that can't even show up at a white tie charity event? We'll be back to talk about that in 90 seconds.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to thepatriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the donor deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your donor deck now. Have a new product or idea? Whether it's already in production or just a concept. Whether you're an individual, a small business, or a medium-sized company, our upcoming show on Patriot TV is here to showcase it to millions and launch it in a big way. We're looking for businesses like yours to feature your product on our new show and pitch it to over 6 million followers, eager to support like-minded businesses. Whether it's a single product or a new product line, we have a platform to skyrocket sales. With powerful Patriot TV ads, targeted direct mail, and the influence of our dynamic show hosts, your product will get the attention it deserves. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Email us now at advertise@patriot.tv to secure your spot and watch your sales take off.
And we're back on Election Edge. Lee, you heard my little preamble there about, the dinner, and we saw what happened back in 2016 when Trump sort of needled Hillary Clinton a little bit. I mean, Dolan was polite when he said he's disappointed. Chuck Schumer, senator from New York, Governor Hochul, governor of New York, they're pushing Harris to go. I mean, what gives? This is like a traditional stop. The last presidential candidate that didn't attend this was Walter Mondale, and he lost 49 states. Lee, what the hell's going on here?
Well, if it was a call to prayer or a mosque get together, I bet you she would have showed up, to be honest with you. That's probably a guarantee. Listen, sometimes and pardon the expression, I don't want to sound too graphic, sometimes you cut your own throat. You make huge mistakes and it ends up biting you in the rear end. And I can see this being one of those cases. That's not a heavy lift. You show up, you smile, you wave, you want to kiss the pinky ring and all of that. And it's a home run for you. But it just shows me there is a lack of respect, I think. There's a lack of respect for faith in this country. And I think we've gotten to that point, unfortunately, unless, of course, it's Muslim faith, because that is those folks apparently are more pious and worthy than everybody else, which seems to annoy me to no end. But it seems to be the fact. But I think, like I said, this is one of those situations where maybe the politician made a huge mistake, and we'll see if it ends up hurting her in the end.
Joe, do you think Schumer and Hochul can actually talk her into attending this dinner? I mean, look, it's for Catholic charities. Do you think she really doesn't want to be seen at a Catholic charity event for, pissing off the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party and, their votes in Michigan? Or do you think this is just political stupidity?
I think this is just her being her, and they will definitely talk her into it. Listen, the jokes and the jabs are all pre-written, and they read them. Trump did, Hillary Clinton did, and they're brutal. I mean, but they're written like the dinners for the that they do at the White House, and so it's not like, oh my God, I have to create interviews or speak. It's all scripted. And you got to be able to take a jab, though. Maybe she can't, but I think it's just like the debates. I'll invite, I won't go. You go, I won't go. I'll go on Fox and CNN. They're playing that game, but at the end of the day, I think she has to come, and I think you'll see that.
I think you're right. I mean, Trump's going to be there, and it's just going to look, to borrow Tim Waltz's term, weird if Trump's the only one there. Okay, let's talk about something serious that is happening in the Middle East. Lee, it looks like the Israeli ground invasion of Lebanon could be hours, if not days, away. They're calling up additional troops. They've hit 2,000 Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. This looks like a two-front war breaking out. Iran has been requested by Hezbollah to attack. They're not doing it. And I believe the reason they're not doing it is because Israel has the Iran nuclear program in its sights. Israel has nuclear weapons. They won't admit it, but they have them. Lee, I think that's what's holding it back, but it looks to me like this ground invasion is going to happen in Lebanon.
Israel used some serious weaponry the other night. I don't know if you all got a chance to see some of the video footage of some of the bombs that were dropped. One person actually alleged that it was somewhat of some kind of a tactical nuclear weapon that they dropped. They've taken the gloves off. Gloves off, thank goodness. And the, October 7th was absolutely the straw that broke the camel's back. And I am right there with them, as should the rest of the United States of America. Where is Joe Biden? Where is Kamala Harris standing side by side with our most important Middle Eastern ally in a time when they are now going, if in fact, like you said, Mark, it becomes a two-front war for them, that is a very difficult situation for them to navigate. So, yeah, I do think that they have made up their mind that this is now this is like the end for them. They're no longer going to deal with Hamas. They're now going to go after Hezbollah. The idea of a two-state solution has disappeared. I think it may be simply a one-state solution. You'll live our way or no way. And I mean, I don't know how anybody can blame them. Anyone in their right mind, when they look at this situation and how much death and destruction was pointed at the Israelis for how many years, decades, firing rockets constantly at playgrounds, at schools, etc. And October 7th came and they had enough. So, yeah, again, it's a scary situation for the planet because you're right, there are nuclear weapons at play here. Israel has taken the gloves off. I don't know in my lifetime, they've never done it like that before, but we need to pay very close attention to this. And I think we should be standing side by side with them right now, and we're not.
Oh, I'm 100% in your camp. And yet we have two fools. One's current president, and the other wants to be president. You know, her saying, well, we need a two-state solution and we need hostages returned. Oh, okay, Madam Vice President, how's that going to happen when neither side wants to do that? You know, Blinken's been to the area 10 times. They keep telling us, oh, it's close. You know, we're getting there. No, we're not. It's not anywhere near close, or you wouldn't have a war going on two fronts. And, Joe, the United States wouldn't have 50% of its Navy in the Middle East right now. It's crazy.
Right. So I'd love to give a little territory view for the listeners and viewers out there. I've been to Nazareth, which is a lot like San Francisco, California, if you haven't been there. Very mountainous and hilly, but it's a city. You think you're in San Francisco. And then there's a rural area, kind of like Arizona, between Nazareth and Lebanon. Same thing with Haifa. Haifa, we have the Sixth Fleet there. It's a city. It's gorgeous. And they're right there where Lebanon is, very, very close. And they're being bombed. And this is important. I went to St. Mary's, where Mary's Church is in Nazareth. Beautiful church, like you were any town in America. And there's a mosque next door. And at sunset, you hear the mosque going off. So they're lobbing rockets into areas where, especially Nazareth and Haifa, where many, many Muslim families live. It's not like Gaza or the West Bank. These are normal, open cities where people of all faiths live, and there's mosques there. So they're not just, Hezbollah's not just doing this to Israel, they're doing this to their own people. This is why Israel has to make a move now. They're being threatened in those northern cities. And the Bay of Lebanon at Haifa is very, very big area for importing. And like I said, our Sixth Fleet hangs out there when they do come into port. So very dangerous time, and Israel has to do this. I don't like what the military in America is doing. There's Biden sending people over. Friends of mine had their kids called up, of age, of course, in the Navy and the Marines, and they are being brought over. And the news is saying that they want to make peace. There's no more time for peace. This is it. No. And of course, the ground invasion is going to be very different than Hamas in Gaza, because those buildings in Lebanon, decades of hidden bombs. We're seeing buildings go, God knows what's in them. So very hazardous for Israel to go on the ground there. And America is going to probably be involved in landing there for what? I mean, we know something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, to me, it's astonishing. Harris gets up there and says, we don't have any U.S. troops in a combat zone. We have 40,000 troops in a combat zone. It's called the Middle East. What the hell is she talking about? All right, she laid another sort of bombshell on what I'll call moderate Democrats when she said she would be in favor of getting rid of the filibuster to pass abortion rights. Now, that immediately drew the wrath of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, two senators who are not running for re-election. And Manchin said she knows better than this. But it may become a moot point, Lee, because you would have to have a democratically controlled Senate to do that. And right now, again, the Republicans are going to take West Virginia. That's a given. That makes it 50-50. They're leading big in Montana. That would make it 51-49. Bernie Moreno is surging in Ohio over Sherrod Brown. He's now gained a 2-point lead. That could be 52-48. Now, under a worst case scenario, if she became president, Trump lost, the likelihood is we still have a Republican Senate. The House is too close to call right now. But Lee, at least if things are trending this way, some of these radical ideas that she's proposing would never become law. But the presidency still has enormous executive power. But this is pretty good news with Montana and the Ohio Senate races and other races too. Dave McCormick is neck and neck in Pennsylvania. Carrie Lake's not quite there in Arizona, but she's close. What do you make of the Senate side of the equation? It's very important.
Well, I know they throw these things out there all the time. They being the Democrats throw it out there, these crazy ideas, which is what they really want, right? They want to be able to load the Supreme Court. They want to be able to, in this case, get rid of the filibuster, and then they can implement their most important topic with their most important plank in their platform, which has been abortion, and it is abortion. That is the most important thing to Kamala Harris and the cronies that surround her. I just think they throw this stuff out there, and I can't imagine that it ends up coming to fruition, but it just shows you them in their true light. If they had complete and total power, these are the things that they would accomplish. They would rip the Constitution up right in front of your face, laugh as they do it. I truly believe that the true progressive liberal, that's what their mindset is. That's what they want.
Joe?
There's no telling what they'll do when they're cornered. And that's where we are right now. We've seen so many things happen to our nation in the last 10, 12, 15 years that we never thought we'd see. And so I think, again, we have to prepare our mind for the unthinkable. We really do. Every day we wake up, the unthinkable. Will there be nuclear warheads going off coming out of Russia? Will NATO strike back? Will the U.S. get bogged down in Lebanon to try to make peace, and we go in? Everything's forgiven. Will Taiwan make a move? Because one or two of these things go, another thing goes. All the hot potatoes that are out there, like Taiwan and China, and so you see the cascading effect of one problem. And so we're only on the brink because it's man-made. We don't know who the men are, but it's a man-made problems, and everybody knows it. We've got to get Trump in, and that only gives us 4 years. But think about it, 3.5 years in World War II, what we did, what the world did in 3.5 years. It was a horrible thing, but what was reconstructed and what came out of that. So Biden has undermined for 3.5 years with Harris, and so 3.5 years, I think we can reconstruct the nation into the bedrock foundations of who we are, and not just on a Supreme Court and not hot buttons like abortion. We've got to get back to the rule of law, equal justice under the law, where we can go to court and feel not being given
Joe and Lee, we're out of time. We're out of time, but I want to thank both you guys for coming. Always an insightful discussion. Thanks again for joining me today. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow, Election Edge, Thursday. See you tomorrow.